The story of Michael Cray starts not in the modern times, but in last century, at a time when war was raging in the Pacific theater of World War II. October of 1944 saw one of the largest naval battles in human history. December 5th, 1944, we find Deathblow on an ultra secret mission as part of Operation Codename Murgatroyd. The difference here is that this is an OSS operative named Collins, the progenitor of the Deathblow codename, the first Deathblow. It was Collins who put together the first Team Zero team, a precursor to Team 7. In the 1960s, an ex-CIA operative named Miles Craven broke off from the main intelligence apparatus and created a veritable fifth column, his own spy network called IO, or International Operations. Craven's objective? To take on SPBs, or superpowered beings. This was right around the time that both Cherubim and Daemonite alien factions made themselves known as obvious analogs to cherubs, angels, and demons. Image Comics was replete with theological metaphor and allegory. You had savior pastiches, a prophet, chapel, an angel named Evangeline, the obvious connections with Spawn. Image co-founder Rob Liefeld's father was a Baptist minister, an obvious influence on his work, while Jim Lee also had a religious upbringing, and Deathblow co-creator Brandon Choi attended an all-boys Catholic school in his youth. Jacob Marlowe, aka Saul Baxter, aka Lord Emp, the founder of the WildC.A.T.S team and founder of Halo Corporation, convinced Craven to stand up a new strike team, this one dubbed Team 1. These would be SPBs who could go toe-to-toe with this new emerging threat. The team consisted of Lucy Blaze, who'd later be called Zealot, John Cole, who'd later be Spartan, Mr. Majestic, Mark Slayton, aka Backlash, and even Henry Bendix, codename Think Tank. Craven then began standing up another new team, Team 7. As revealed in the Fire from Heaven series, an interdimensional being named Sigma had a dimensional superstring power. It allowed him to pull power from countless parallel dimensions, effectively making him akin to a superhero pluripotent stem cell. After a villain named Damocles destroyed his home dimension, Sigma was raised in the Wildstorm reality by Dr. Simon Sung, a scientist who just so happened to work with one Miles Craven. Craven understood the potential before him and exposed his troops and patients to the power, including Team 7. They were exposed to a gen factor. What powers would emerge would remain to be seen. And for Team 7, he did this by sending them out on a fake mission where they encountered chemical weapons thought to be the enemies. All of Team 7 started to develop powers right away, seemingly except for Mike Cray. Well, he thought he didn't get power, he did in fact, but it lay dormant for many years until it was discovered that he was immortal. Incidentally, the progeny of Team 7 would later become J. Scott Campbell's Gen 13. The next Team 7 team were the gold symbiote-wearing Wetworks team. When the Gen Factor was turned on, these SPBs became Gen Active. It's also worth noting here that Deathblow's daughter is Rachel Goldman, aka Sublime, though she doesn't practice Santeria and she doesn't have a crystal ball. Enter Michael Cray. Cray's parents, Elizabeth and U.S. Navy Admiral James Cray, were killed by terrorists, an event that served as a catalyst to joining the United States Navy and going through BUD/S training to become a U.S. Navy SEAL. In the Darker Image one-shot, Cray was in-country on an op. On a riverboat, he covertly kitted up, donned his iconic face paint, and loaded his venerable Beretta 92. It's then that we learn that Commander Michael Cray was a United States Navy SEAL Team 7 CO when they were running drug interdiction operations in the late 80s down in Central America. He'd since gone rogue, and so Miles Craven and IO director Lynch were working to bring him in, to take him down before he could get revenge on a trafficker named General Manuel Ortega, who'd once killed Cray's partner in Panama. 1993's Deathblow Zero picks up that story and finds Cray taking on the SOG hit teams that descended on his position. Cray assaulted Ortega's compound, all while being pursued by his own country. In Team 7, we meet the team while already on a mission during the 1970s, one in which both Cray and Cash killed hostages, tricked by his commander. An airstrike was then ordered, right on top of their position. This was carpet bombing from a flight of massive buffs. As you'd expect, they leveled the area and left nothing but gaping holes in the earth and smoldering ruins. The buffs destroyed everything except the team. The bodies were recovered and brought back to IO. Their next mission was a halo drop into another godforsaken region to infiltrate a lab complex and recover whatever the hell the scientists were unleashing there. Except this was a setup. This is where they were exposed to the genetic material that altered their DNA and imbued them all with powers. Many of them died from exposure, whether it was an overload of power or an inability to endure the pain. Cray was one of the few left, and as I mentioned earlier, left to wonder why he didn't get superpowers as well. A command element ordered the team nuked with a ship-launched cruise missile with a low-yield nuclear warhead, all while Cray was arrested. He escaped and managed to get a Spaz-12 to the back of the skipper's head, but when the team survived, he stood down and allowed himself to be taken to the brig. Team 7 went to ground, hiding out in Nicaragua, while Cray did a stint up in federal lockup at Leavenworth. By the time the second Team 7 miniseries started, in the summer of '95, Cray had beat up some skinheads and was now in what's called protective custody, a separate unit away from Gen Pop. Lynch eventually came to Cray to ask for his help tracking down and talking to the former AWOL team, this in exchange for full immunity and his freedom. Cray convinced them to help him recover hundreds of tactical nuclear warheads, which were, during the Vietnam War, a contingency plan in case China decided to enter the fray and help the North Vietnamese. It was in this story when 2 Soviet SPBs attacked and Cray went down, killed. But later his eyes opened wide, the first indication that he too was a superpowered being. He scooped up his battle buddy Dane and managed to E&E, linking up with the team back at the evac site. In Dead Reckoning, Clay and the team went after Psi Intel Unit 0, a Soviet experimental genetic weapons lab, the makers of the 2 combatants they encountered in their last story. In this book, there's also a neat eye chart where you see the red face paint each team member wears, including Cray's trademark twin red vertical stripes. This is also when we see how Grifter got his face mask. Sadly, in Darker Image, we also learn that Cray had an inoperable brain tumor, we think, one that was terminal. But Cray was no stranger to death. The narration says that Cray had faced death more times than a Bangkok horror has been inoculated by the 7th Fleet. This element really brought some humanity to Cray. He was struggling with what he had done with his life and what he would have to face at the end. Could he be redeemed? Could he be saved? Or was he a lost cause? So anyway, Jim Lee says that after WildC.A.T.S, Deathblow was a bit of a detour for him to explore and expand his artistry from slick, clean superheroics to blocky, craggy, Sin City-era Frank Miller-esque influence where cross-hatching morphed into deep, heavy inks. Heavy noir influence, chiaroscuro lighting, all while wrapping his Punisher war journal experience into this new endeavor. In Wizard Magazine issue 25, Lee says he specifically chose that style because the storyline is dark and menacing. The thing is, though, Frank Miller was not happy someone was imitating his style. So he called out Jim Lee in this letter here, which you can find in Sin City, The Big Fat Kill #1. He calls out Jim Lee, Tim Sale, and Mike Netzer, who Miller says made a career out of aping Neil Adams style. In 2002, Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo teamed up for the Batman Deathblow After the Fire 3-part limited series. This explored Cray's backstory a bit more. Cray took out a target in Gotham, which brought Bruce Wayne's detective skills to bear on the assassin Deathblow. Wayne accessed the IO database and uncovered that Deathblow was a Black Ops codename that had been in use since the Second World War with Collins. Since then, there had been 39 Deathblows, with Cray being just the latest. Wayne uncovered details of Operation Cherry Bomb, an anti-terrorist operation in Gotham City to take out, among other things, an arsonist. The Deathblow series opened with a story called Confessions, finding Cray seeking forgiveness for his sins. In issue 2, we meet Cray's best friend, a former IO and NSA analyst turned field operative named Travis. Travis was the one to share with him that he had an inoperable terminal cancer. In issue 3, Cray and the team then haloed in from a C-130 over Baghdad to take out a cult run by Black Angel who'd broken a seal over the gates of purgatory. Meanwhile, some priests from the Vatican's Order of the Cross were running around too, with Cray taking out one father, and the blowback from that action would follow for a while. They took out everyone, then called in both their evac and an offshore cruise missile strike. Back stateside, a physician told Cray that his cancer had metastasized. He didn't have much time left. But what had really happened is that his gen factor was on the verge of fully activating his powers. FBI agent Gabby D'Angelo, who was also an avenging angel, learned of this too. He told her he was beyond a cure, and he deserved it all for the blood he'd spilt. Their time together was interrupted by a squad of Black Ops priests. Cray used an ancient tome and a key inside to track down the Brotherhood, to stop the Black Angel before the end of days came to Earth. The Order of the Cross had in its possession the Holy Grail, so Cray surmised if he was taken out by them, it may mean he beats the Grim Reaper. Cray used his connections to uncover that the key that spilt out of the tome was made by Monk Cairn Abbey, just outside of Philadelphia. The nuns there were keeping a miracle kid safe while Sister Mary was investigating Cray and one of the Black Angel cronies named Herod. She thought Herod to be Cray at first, and their paths collided. Sister Mary, who also happened to be former NYPD Internal Affairs, ended up working with Cray to take down Black Angel, and it turned out that Travis was Herod. Cray stood his ground against Black Angel and his men, firing back amidst a hailstorm of bullets that ripped through the air around him, slamming into the train behind him and tearing his flesh and clothes, but it did not kill him. No, now we have the Black Angel, the Monk's Order, and Special Agent D'Angelo all tracking down Cray. She was the lead investigator on the FBI's Herod case. It was all about to come crashing together in chaos and violence. Michael and Mary met up with the monks, made nice, and Cray then asked about the Grail to cure his ailment. In turn for saving the Miracle Kid, he was able to drink from the Grail, but he had to cleanse his soul first with confession. This, it would turn out, was fake. As he went to leave, he was shot center mass at point-blank range with a shotgun, and survived. The hole healed immediately and he shot Black Angel's demon in the forehead with his 50 cal Desert Eagle. Cray, Sister Mary, and the monks, guns ablaze, battled the demonic assault team. Lynch also showed up in a Black Razor's mechanized armor to help fight. The monk gave Cray the mystical Sword of Heaven, used by the Archangel Raphael himself to drive Lucifer from heaven, and tasked Mike with killing Black Angel, the only way to purify his soul, a destiny foretold in the Book of Judgment. Black Angel and his demons took the Miracle Kid in coffins belonging to the Four Horsemen to the top of the World Trade Center, and from there, he planned to unleash hell on Earth. Deathblow and Sister Mary worked to rescue Gabby from Travis, as he had her now hung upside down from a torture rack. He saved Gabby and saw the darkness had purged from his body, just as she died in his arms. In issue 12, Deathblow called in Dane, Grifter, and Backlash to help while he worked with Sister Mary, Faisal, and a couple cops to fight Black Angel. Cray then used the Sword of Heaven to finally destroy Black Angel, while the Miracle Kid used his sword's power to reverse everything that the Black Angel had done. In issue 13, Cray was immediately thrust into a plot with more killings by the Were Nation, though 9 months had now passed from where we left Cray at Gabby's tombstone. This is when Raina from Executive Protection Services contacted him again. She wanted him on protective detail for an HVT in Hollywood that's a high-value target that may be a target of recent serial killings. Little did they know yet that this was the werewolves, they thought, and they were led by a major defense contractor named Armand Waring, another of Craven's cronies. Caroline, the celebrity, reveals that she was being targeted by John Barry, the deputy director of the Central Intelligence Agency, and she said that he was a werewolf. A hit team was dispatched and quickly taken out with help from Johnny Savoy, who it turns out was a vampire. And in another twist, Caroline was a werewolf, and Cray stopped her. Commander Cray then went back to Coronado in San Diego to visit his friends right at the end of Bud's Hell Week, too. Turns out that Captain Archer was on a hit list, next to be assassinated, and Tom Archer was indeed killed, his wife widowed, and the killer escaped, and Cray was last on that hit list. In issue 16, Deathblow needed to fight off a horde of Daemonites to protect a key he'd found in the Team 7 days, part of the Wildstorm Rising event. It was a withered alien hand clutching the key they recovered in Nicaragua. It was when he broke it apart that the events were set in motion for Wildstorm Rising. The villain Defile had that key, but not the second. Deathblow and Grifter then worked together to get the missing key from a tomb, seeking aid from Dane and Wetworks while fighting both Wildcats and the Daemonite Hellspawn. Next, Cray and Raina had to go to the island nation of Gamorra to confront Kaizen Gamorra. They uncovered ties to Project Genesis and its links to a Gamoran organ harvesting program. He linked up with a lady named Mai Li after Raina was kidnapped to stop him and shut down the program that had turned out some serious monsters already. Monsters they continued to fight the deeper into Kaizen's compound they went. And they managed to get out, but not before Mai Li met her demise. Issue 20 brought Cray into conflict with the Gen 13 kids before realizing Lynch connected them, and they had to work together to find him. Craven had declared Lynch a traitor for rescuing Gen 13 from Project Genesis in Craven's custody. Cray went to warn Dane while Craven dispatched his assistant, Le Gauche, and activated the Brethren to kill the rest of Team 7. They were using a gene extractor to steal their powers. Craven sent his hit squad after Colonel Mark Slayton next, Backlash, though Mark and Mike were already together. Grifter also linked up with his buddies to fight, and Team 7 teamed up with Gen 13 as brothers in arms to battle Craven's forces. In the Fire from Heaven event, Deathblow sacrificed himself to defeat the main villain of the event, Damocles. The finale was meant to be in Fire from Heaven issue 2, but due to delays, it ended up being Deathblow issue 28. And the last issue, 29, served as a sort of eulogy, exploring how people like Raina dealt with Mike Cray's death. Wild Times Deathblow was a Western-themed story written by Norman Partridge, who wrote The Crow Wicked Prayer, and drawn by Tommy Lee Edwards, who worked on The Crow as well, having done art for issue 4 of the Image series. This was Gunslinger Deathblow in the Arizona Territory circa 1899. At the end of 1999, Alan Moore wrote Deathblow Byblows, which introduced us to a female Deathblow named Genevieve Cray, along with a bunch of others hatched out of eggs because, yeah, Alan Moore. In 2006, a DC Universe character named Captain Atom found himself in the Wildstorm universe, rewriting history. Deathblow was now discovered in a prison camp in Afghanistan. This was in Brian Azzarello's 9-issue series, and it was Ivana Bayul who sent in 7 helicopters to pull Cray out of that compound, but instead of freedom, he now wound up in Guantanamo Bay before going to New York. That's where he was reunited with Johnny and Martha, his kids, and their nanny, Chastity. His wife had been killed by a taxi while he was presumed dead. Bayul had set him up with a new family and a new life, to neuter him essentially while they monitored him for the effects of his captivity. Oh, and Mr. Jiminy is his talking dog, because comics. At night, Mike was going out as a hooded vigilante and fighting crime. The kids found out and reported him back to General Ruckus, and so the general ordered him taken out, so everyone, even his 2 kids, took up arms to carry out their orders. He took out a scantily clad Chastity, and then his fake kids after they fired on him. Turns out they were little people dressed young, but government operatives. Agents wanted to know if he was working for us or them, both of those being agency acronyms, but he said, nope, I'm just working for me. They also sent an army of bioweaponized rats after him. The last issue of the volume was a battle royal with Cray, human soldiers, and the gunny rats. Turns out Mr. Jiminy was working with them against the us, and so Ivana had to put him down, right in Deathblow's arms. Again. At the end, a dirty bomb went off, which dealt Cray another death blow and gained him another headstone. His first appearance in New 52 continuity came in 2012's 9th issue of Drifter, and then he met his demise once again in Convergence Aquaman 2 in 2015. And in this new continuity, we learned that his cancer was actually caused by the Daemonite DNA implanted in his body a long time ago. In 2017's The Wildstorm, Mike was now tasked with assassinating Jacob Marlowe, and he ended up leaving and heading to San Francisco to work with Christine Trelane at EPS, Executive Protection Services. The first spin-off of Warren Ellis's The Wildstorm relaunch in 2017 was Deathblow, entitled Michael Cray. Brian Hill's series found him working with Trelane and dealing with this alien in his head that was apparently killing him. His first target with EPS? Oliver Queen. Green Arrow. He also went after Barry Allen and even a monster version of Aquaman, along with both John Constantine and Wonder Woman. In 2022, Cray showed up in the Wildstorm 30th anniversary special to talk about his time trying to rescue Masood Barzanji, one of those who rescued him from an Iraqi prison years ago. 2023 found a new launch of WildC.A.T.S hitting shelves by writer Matt Rosenberg. Cray was now controlled mentally in a sort of Dead Man Meets Bloodshot way. His consciousness could be put into different bodies as needed. He worked with WildC.A.T.S under Marlowe at Halo in Star City, although it would turn out that the Court of Owls was controlling the Halo Corporation. Cray went haywire and attacked Jason Halliday, so he was put down and the Deathblow program was shelved, but by issue 7, Ladytron had uploaded Cray into a Spartan body. The team was him, Grifter, Zealot, Void, Fairchild, Ladytron. In the last issue, the chip that controlled Cray's brain was inserted into Maul. That was then given to Midnighter for purposes. So where will he show up next? Well, we'll have to see. There were some cool crossovers too over the years. In 1997, IO's Team 7 met the CIA's Weapon X Team X, including Marvel's Logan, aka Wolverine. This happened to be written by Larry Hama, with art by Steve Epting and Klaus Janson. Both teams converged on a Numidian super soldier lab, which just so happened to have one Omega Red inside. After they escaped, the one Team 7 was after shapeshifted and revealed herself to be Mystique. The eponymous Deathblow and Wolverine met again in their 2-part miniseries. This time they linked up in San Francisco and fought some ninjas in Chinatown. He also made some super brief cameos in 1996 for an event called World War III in the 13th issue of Fantastic Four, Avengers, Iron Man, and Captain America. And so there you have it, the story of Michael Cray, codenamed Deathblow. That's a wrap on this one, my friends. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.